Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Medico's Guide, and in this video we are going to be discussing about the Catton-Bond convex concave rule that we'll be discussing under the joint rule gliding associated with bone rotations. So let's first take a look at the objectives of our today's lecture: joint rule gliding, abnormal rule gliding, and the glide mobilization treatment. Now let's first understand what is joint rule gliding. In the healthy joint, the functional movement, which is also known as the bone rotation, which is the movement of the bone in the standard planes like flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, and so on. So whenever there is rotation of the bone, it produces the joint rule gliding. To simply put, it means that whenever there is rotation of the bone, the rolling gliding occurs at the joint. And now the roll gliding is basically a combination of rolling and gliding movement which takes place between the two joint surfaces. For example, in the spine, it occurs between the two adjacent vertebrae in a mobile segment. Now let's take a look at the joint surfaces where these gliding and rolling are predominant. So relatively, more gliding is present when the joint surfaces are more congruent, which means that when they are completely flat or completely curved. And more rolling occurs when the joint surfaces are less congruent. Now, what is rolling? Rolling occurs when the new equidistant points on one joint surface come in contact with the new equidistant points on another joint surface. Rolling is possible between two incongruent curved surfaces, that is, the surfaces of unequal radii of curvature. Now, as shown in the below diagram, the convex surface can roll on a concave surface or vice versa. Now, the direction of the rolling component of the joint roll gliding is always in the direction of the bone movement. Before we proceed, I have a humble request. If you enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Your support means a lot and it will truly motivate me to create more content for you. Also, if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear from you. Your feedback is always welcome and appreciated. Okay, now let's understand what is gliding. Some authors refer the joint gliding as joint sliding. Gliding occurs when the same point on one joint surface comes in contact with the new points on another joint surface. Pure gliding is the only movement possible between flat or congruent curved surfaces. Since there are no completely curved, congruent, or entirely flat joint surfaces, pure gliding does not occur in the human body. In facet joints with a normally small range of movement, the facet surfaces primarily glide with a negligible rolling component. If there is greater range of movement available, the facet joint can both roll and glide. The direction of the gliding component of the joint roll gliding associated with the particular bone movement depends on whether a concave or a convex articular surface is moving. As shown in the diagram number 1, if the concave surface moves, joint gliding and bone movements are in the same direction. The moving bone and its concave joint surface are both on the same side of the axis of movement. Now let's come to a second figure. If the convex joint surface is moving, the joint gliding and the distal bone movement are in the opposite directions. In this case, the distal aspects of the moving bone and its convex articular surface are on the opposite side of the movement axis. Now let's take a look at abnormal roll gliding. With the movement restrictions, that is, in the case of hypermobility, normal joint roll gliding is often disturbed. Usually, the restricted movement is associated with an impaired gliding component, which may allow the joint rolling to occur without its associated gliding. Highly congruent joints, whether flat or curved, are relatively more affected by the impaired gliding. A common goal in our approach to OMT is to restore the gliding component of the roll gliding to normalize the movement mechanics. Joint rolling movements in the absence of the gliding can produce a damaging concentration of forces in the joint. On the same side towards which the bone is moving, joint surfaces tend to press and pinch the interarticular structures, which can cause injury. At the same time, on the side opposite the bone movement, the tissues can be overstretched. The following examples illustrate how damaging compression forces may occur when treating hypermobile joints with long lever rotatoric techniques or with the short lever techniques applied parallel to the convex articular surface. In the presence of restricted joint movement, it is important to avoid rotational joint treatment techniques. If you use a rotational technique for other purposes, for example oscillations or muscle stretching, be sure that the simultaneous joint gliding component occurs in an appropriate degree and direction. If you observe restricted or disturbed joint gliding during a rotational technique, stop the movement immediately and apply appropriate treatment to restore joint gliding. Glide mobilization treatment. The most effective glide mobilization treatments are those that stretch shortened joint structures in the direction of the most restricted gliding. The therapist moves the bone with the convex joint surface opposite to the direction of the restricted movement in the distal aspect of the bone, and the concave joint surface in the same direction as the direction of the restricted bone movement. Let's understand this concept with the help of a diagram. In both the examples which follow, mobilization is in the direction of the decreased gliding component. The direction of the stretch, a grade 3 glide mobilization, is identical to the direction of the restricted gliding component of the rule gliding. So as you can see in the above diagram, the moving joint partner surface is convex. Now, when the bone movement is restricted in the upward direction, the treatment direction is downwards. While in the diagram below, the moving joint partner surface is concave. When bone movement is restricted in the upward direction, the treatment direction is also upwards. Now let's see how the convex-concave rule is applied on the spine. In the spine, the occiput in relation to atlas as well as the sacrum in relation to innominates, they all follow the convex rule. While the rest of the spine from the C2 to L5, they all follow the concave rule. While the atlas, that is C1, does not follow any convex-concave rule because of its relation to the dens. In the first diagram, as you can see, the occiput having a convex joint surface moves according to the convex rule in relation to the atlas, while the cervical vertebra below C2 move according to concave rule. And that wraps up today's video. Feel free to ask any questions related to this topic in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any new videos. If you enjoyed my video, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. See you in the next video. Until then, take care.